Wednesday. Good morning. Hey now. We'll get right to work. We looked at Scott Joplin yesterday, and I hope you were thinking about some of the origins of ragtime, how we're going to look at how and talk about a lot of composers today now that we can freely talk about them because we've done all the introductory classes on their lives and stuff. So it'll be really fun to look at, because sometimes we think, oh, Mozart, classical music, oh, jazz music, but I'm really trying to gap some of these. What were those transitionary composers, transitionary ideas that developed new genres of music that we just take for granted today, rightly so. I mean, we're not going to spend our days thinking about that. Sometimes I do, and I get kind of distracted because I love Scott Joplin's music so much, and I think, how did he get it? And of course, we'll never know. But there's got to be some musical evolution of what he was listening to. And today we're going to focus a little bit on a composer, but also on the genre of march music. So today we're going to look at the great John Philip Sousa. March music doesn't have to be our favorite kind of music. I don't, when I want to unwind at the end of the day, I don't necessarily turn on a marching band. We all know John Philip Sousa though, right? I mean, you heard that opening. We know it's Americana, it's patriotic, and it's got a rhythmic drive that people like Scott Joplin are going to take note of, whether they liked his music or not. We're going to look harmonically also how similar it is to ragtime. And this came right before ragtime. And so maybe this is our gap that we're going to try to fill in. Because we know ragtime, it was influenced by marching music and polyrhythms, more than one rhythm going on. Let's just keep it simple. And a lot of these polyrhythms with ragtime are coming from African music and blues music in America, because we've talked about blues and jazz being an American art form, and the Europeans were very impressed with us. So mostly in the South, right? I mean, we talked about Scott Joplin yesterday about his family in the South. So if we're thinking of up-tempo classical music, and then, with Rossini and people like that, because not all classical music is slow and boring. Much of that music has drive and rhythm, but doesn't really. Let's get into this. Let's look at our timeline. All these composers we've covered, but we need a refresher, right? So before ragtime, there was the march, and Sousa was just the king of the marches. How did he get there? Our timeline, he's late Romantic period. His music doesn't really sound romantic, does it? But it sounds melodic. Romantic music and melody have to go together, right? It's not dissonant music. It's not atonal music. It's very, you can sing Tchaikovsky's melodies. You can sing Strauss's melodies. So if you can sing it, that probably means it's melodic enough. So Sousa was doing that. It just didn't sound romantic in the traditional sense of very soothing or something like that. This was pretty, aggressive patriotic music, which is a lot of fun. So if Sousa is born in 1854, dies in 1932, if he's going on at this time, who's he influenced by? He's going to be influenced by Johann Strauss. The Blue Danube was one of the most famous pieces, and that's the waltz, right? We talked about how important the waltz was and how, this also allowed people to dance closer, which of course is not right, but everyone wanted to do it anyway. You grab your partner and you dance close and you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this was becoming this was popular music like we talked about in the day. So Strauss is going to be bordering on popular music in the sense that you don't just listen to the concert hall in silence. You participate in this. You dance at the balls, at the parties. Wagner is doing his own operas and in his own world, and he doesn't sound like Wagner's music at all, but Wagner is, of course, the king of Romanticism. Tchaikovsky's much more sensitive romantic, but we looked at him. We looked at Franz Schubert with The Lieder and all of his beautiful music with songs that he did, and same with Schumann. They were both, composers and could do anything, but mostly Lieder was their, a lot of it, what they're remembered for is Lieder. So Sousa's before Scott Joplin, obviously, because we're trying to get to Scott Joplin. Joplin's going to be very influenced by Sousa. Who else is going to be influenced? Because it's American music, George M. Cohen, we looked at, and we'll do another class on coming this summer on Yankee Doodle Dandy. He loves Sousa. He's going to incorporate a lot of marches. Same with Meredith Willson a lot later with the Music Band. That's a lot later, but this is Sousa's influence on these guys. Charles Ives, the very unconventional, controversial composer that we got through that class together, where he would take church hymns, right, and European classical music, and say, hey, let's all play at the same time. But he used marching bands, and he played in a marching band, so he probably played Sousa's music. So Sousa's born in Washington, D.C. So you think about America, I mean, we're developing, we're a new country, but mostly the Europeans, Mozart and Haydn are not romantic composers yet, they're classical composers. Beethoven's going to kind of get into Romanticism, but in America, he studies with classical people, obviously, or studies their works. His dad was a trombonist in the Marine Band, so he had a lot of military experience. Sousa joined the Marine Corps at age 13, something I was going to do when I was 13, but thought maybe I don't know if I could take it enough. So, and then he organized his own band, the Sousa Band, the year he left the Marine Band, and toured all around with him, just like the Jonas Brothers tour. I mean, you get your own band and you go on tour, and that's how you get people to take notice of you. And he performed over 15,000 concerts in America, all around the world. Same with Strauss would do that, right? I mean, you tour the waltz and kind of tour your big hits. It's interesting to think that not a lot has changed. You're a composer, a performer, and you go on tour. So he dies in 1932, heart failure at age 77. So by the time 1932 is around, I mean, he's looking at, early musical Broadway, right? I mean, who knows what he thought about all that, but, the Ziegfeld Follies going on way earlier. But he's into the 20th century music where jazz and swing music is coming in. So that's when he dies. So what I kind of want to look at is, I don't like to get too much into theory and harmony, but with these advanced classes, you guys are definitely able to. We've talked about chords, chord progressions, and we know that, to keep it simple, we know the one chord, the key that the song is in. Probably that is the most important because that's the key you're in, and the 5 chord is the most important because that gets you back to the 1 chord. Many, many thousands, millions of songs just have a 1 and a 5 chord, and 5 and then back to 1, and there's way too many, because we could do that with rock and roll music, we could do that to Haydn. They all go back to the 5 to the 1. That's I don't know if that'll ever change. That's just always how the ear wants to go. That's just ingrained in our evolution. Always where the ear wants to go. So, but something that the marches do, they stay on the 1 and the 5, then they go to the 5 chord. So, I mean, if we just look, so this is the basic harmony. And from this basic harmony chord progressions that the march is doing, somehow Scott Joplin's going to not make it faster, but use the same chord progressions in the left hand. So if he's playing the piano, and it's dun, 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 dun. Those are that's a 1 chord or the 5 chord. He's going to be upping the tempo a little bit, but why don't we hear what I'm talking about first? If we look at the Washington Post March, listen to the bass line, the left hand, and you can hear that it's going from a 1 to a 5 chord to a 5 to back to the 1 chord. Dun, dun, dun. We hear that all the time, but just take a listen. This is, I mean, I still write music just like this. I mean, it doesn't sound like this, but I mean, chord-wise, chord progression-wise, 1/5 chord, that's always been around. That always will be around. For some reason, it's just pleasant. Just like we talked about Mozart years, it seems like it, weeks ago, where why does something sound consonant? So, and then look at this Joplin. He's using the same chord progressions, 5/1/1/5. This is the most simple, basic, elementary thing, but it's in all of our music even today. Listen to Joplin's Maple Leaf. So in both pieces, the left hand, whether it's piano or the orchestra, the basses, they're doing the 1/5/1/5/5/1. They're doing that. So this is Joplin hearing these marches and saying, okay, I'll continue that in the left hand. But then the right hand, Sousa's playing kind of patriotic melodies, right? They're nice melodies. A little like generic, but very, very pleasant, bright sounding melodies. Joplin's not as bright as that, but he's going to stay with the left hand, stay with the chord progressions and the harmony. Joplin's going to kind of outline some chords. He's going to, like outlining, meaning not playing just the chord, but outlining individually some of the notes in the chords. That's just one of them. I mean, he's obviously going to come up with some beautiful melodies, but they're not going to be necessarily simple patriotic melodies. They're going to be a little more sophisticated because he's just doing his own thing. He's outlining some of the chords more. There's a call and answer, like in The Entertainer. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The answer. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's not really like Sousa. That's a little bit more playful. Sousa's kind of playful, but I don't think as humorous or whatever as Scott Joplin. Sousa's serious about this stuff. So that's just a little bit of chord progressions, how these composers, what their harmonic language is. I really want to break this down in the sense that I know music is abstract, and but I just want you guys to hear some of these chord progressions because this is what's going on today. These are the same chords going on, but how did Ragtime come from the march? And then we could always go back and back, well, how did the march happen? And maybe we will. Maybe I'll figure out how the march happens. But for right now, Ragtime came from marches. Some of those marches came from, the Romantic era. But then with Ragtime, we can't dismiss the influence of blues and American black, Southern blues that was founded in our country that the Europeans didn't have any idea about until we started doing it. So definitely it's not like Joplin's just stealing Sousa at all. Not at all. He's stealing these, influenced by his harmonic progressions and movement. Don't. That is still being composed all the time today. He's influenced by that, but he's also going to be focused more on soulful blues music that Sousa doesn't know about yet. I mean, that's the cool thing. So hope you enjoyed Sousa and our advanced Scott Joplin class. Yeah, I think it's very happy music. So have a great rest of the day. Tomorrow we'll do something else. Okay, bye.